We're all taught that money is just math, right? Spreadsheets, formulas, that kind of thing. But what if that's, well, completely wrong? What if being good with money has less to do with how smart you are and way more to do with how you act? That's the big idea we're going to dig into today, and we've got some incredible stories to show you exactly what that means.
All right, let's kick things off with a tale of two guys. On one hand, you've got Ronald Read. He was a janitor and a gas station attendant in rural America. Pretty humble life. And on the other hand, you have Richard Fuscone. This guy was a Harvard-educated executive at Merrill Lynch. Think massive mansion, total luxury. Now, you'd think you know exactly how their financial stories end, right? Well, you might be surprised.
So get this. When Ronald Read, the janitor, passed away, he left a staggering $8 million fortune to charity. $8 million! Meanwhile, Richard Fuscone, our fancy executive with the 11 bathrooms, he went bankrupt. The gap in their education, yeah, it was massive, but the gap in their behavior, that was the one that truly mattered.
And that story just perfectly nails the central point of what we're talking about today. Financial success isn't really a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's about how you behave. Things like patience, greed, fear, those are way more powerful drivers of your financial future than any spreadsheet or fancy degree will ever be.
Okay, so keeping that idea in mind, that behavior is key, let's bust our first big myth. And it's one we all kind of believe, that our success is 100% our own doing. Turns out, that's not the whole story. We've got to talk about two massive, often invisible forces, luck and risk.
Take Bill Gates. Now, the guy's a genius, nobody's denying that, but he also had this incredible 1 in a million stroke of luck. He went to one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer back in 1968. Think about that. Now, his best friend, a guy named Kent Evans, was right there with him, just as brilliant, but Kent, he faced 1 in a million risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. You see? Same level of brilliance, but completely different outcomes.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Luck and risk are really just two sides of the same coin. They show us that our lives are guided by forces that are just totally beyond our control sometimes. So when you're looking at your own financial situation, or someone else's, it's so important to remember this. Nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems on the surface.
All right, let's move on to our next big idea, the danger of more. We're going to look at why that constant, nagging desire for just a little bit more can be one of the absolute most destructive forces when it comes to money.
I mean, check out the story of Rajat Gupta. This guy's life was a movie. He went from being an orphan to the CEO of McKinsey, the most prestigious consulting firm in the world. He was worth $100 million. He literally had everything a person could want or need. But it wasn't enough for him. He wanted to be a billionaire. And chasing that next level, he got into illegal insider trading and ended up losing everything. Think about that. He risked what he had and needed for something he didn't have and absolutely didn't need.
So what drives a man who has everything to throw it all away? It's the poison of social comparison. It's this dangerous game of measuring your own life against someone else's. And here's the thing, it's a game you can never win. Why? Because the goalpost is always moving. No matter how much you have, there's always someone with more. In this comparison trap, it happens at every single level of life. Let's say you're a rookie baseball player making $500 grand a year. You feel rich, right? But then you look over at your teammate, Mike Trout, who's making $36 million a year. Suddenly, you don't feel so rich. But guess what? Trout probably compares himself to some hedge fund manager making $340 million. And that manager? They're looking at someone like Jeff Bezos, whose wealth can jump by $24 billion in a single year. You see, the ceiling just keeps going up and up. The only way to win this game is to refuse to play.
There's this fantastic story about the author Joseph Heller. He's at a party with Kurt Vonnegut, and Vonnegut points out that their billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller's masterpiece, Catch-22, had earned in its entire history. And Heller's reply? It was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." Man, that just says it all, doesn't it? Knowing when you have enough, that is the real superpower.
Okay, so this brings up a really important question. It's one thing to get wealthy, but how do you stay wealthy? Because trust me, getting money and keeping money are two completely different skills. Let's dive into what that means. Think about it like this. Getting wealthy often means you have to take risks. You got to be optimistic, put yourself out there. But staying wealthy, that requires the exact opposite mindset. It requires humility. It requires a little bit of fear, almost a paranoia, that everything you've built could be taken away just as quickly as you made it.
A perfect, if tragic, example is Jesse Livermore. He was one of the greatest stock traders of all time. I mean, during the 1929 crash, he made the equivalent of $3 billion in a single day. The man was a genius at getting rich. But that incredible success led to overconfidence. He got cocky. He started making bigger and riskier bets. And eventually, he lost every penny.
And his story really highlights what might be the single most important skill in finance: survival. It's not about chasing the highest possible returns. It's just about staying in the game. You have to stick around long enough without getting wiped out to let the incredible magic of compounding do its thing.
I mean, just look at Warren Buffett. Yes, he's a brilliant investor, but his real secret weapon, it's time. The guy started investing when he was just 10 years old, and by simply surviving, by not getting wiped out during every crash and recession, he's allowed compounding to work for decades and decades. And get this, more than 99% of his entire net worth was earned after his 50th birthday. That's the power of just sticking around.
So if survival is the most important skill, what's the whole point? What's the ultimate goal of all this saving and investing? I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a bigger house or a fancier car. It's something much, much more valuable. It's what we could call money's greatest dividend.
And it's this: control over your time. That's it. That's the whole game. The greatest thing money can buy is the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. The freedom to do what you want, when you want, with the people you want to do it with, that is absolutely priceless. That is the real return on your savings.
And look, this isn't just some feel-good platitude. It's actually backed up by science. A psychologist named Angus Campbell did this big study and found that having a strong sense of control over your own life is a more dependable predictor of happiness than your salary, the size of your house, or your job title. That feeling of autonomy, that's the universal fuel for a happy life.
So what does that control actually look like in the real world? Well, your savings, that unspent money, it buys you options. It's the ability to take a few sick days without worrying about the rent. It's having the patience to wait for a good job after you get laid off instead of grabbing the first thing that comes along. It's the freedom to not be terrified of your boss. Maybe it's even taking a lower-paying job that you love because it gives you more flexibility. Ultimately, it's about retiring when you want to, not when you're forced to. Every dollar you save is a little piece of your future that you and only you get to own.
Okay, let's start to wrap this all up with one last really crucial mindset shift. When it comes to your money, don't aim to be coldly rational. Don't try to be a robot. Instead, just aim to be pretty reasonable. And why is that so important? Because being reasonable is something you can actually stick with for the long haul. It's sustainable.
This is my favorite example of this. There's a guy named Harry Markowitz who literally won a Nobel Prize for creating these hyper-rational, mathematically optimal investment strategies. But when it came to his own retirement money, he didn't use them. His goal wasn't to be perfectly rational. His goal was simply to minimize future regret. He just wanted to build a portfolio that would let him sleep well at night. That's not a rational goal. That's a reasonable one.
So really, it all comes back to where we started. The most crucial takeaway is this: being successful with money has so much less to do with what you know and so much more to do with how you behave. It's about learning to manage your own greed and your own fear. It's about being patient. And maybe most importantly, it's about figuring out for yourself what enough really means.
You know, in the end, we all tell ourselves stories to make sense of the world, and especially to make sense of money. So as we wrap this up, the big question I want to leave you with has nothing to do with spreadsheets or stock markets. It's much more personal. It's this: what story are you telling yourself about money?